Before we jump into all the Season 4 coverage here on the channel for Warzone the next few days, I wanted to round out some of our Modern Warfare 2 discussions with a few topics of note on how this year's multiplayer is going to be a bit different in regards to the content offering. Not necessarily talking about the DLC and the approach we'll see to that, though we may touch on the seasonal length here later on in the video, but more so touching on some questions that I've seen and noticed over the last week and a half or so since the reveal, touching on some more specific, but also some bigger picture items that I've seen directly asked. So in regard to that, this may be somewhat of a Q&A type of video, and for that, in the future, if you'd like to see another follow-up video, something more custom tailored to what you may be curious about, feel free to drop your thoughts below. I have no idea when a follow-up for this would be, but feel free to drop your thoughts or questions. What weapons would you like to see in Modern Warfare 2? What modes would you like to see? What are your expectations? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and stay updated with all things Modern Warfare 2, and here later this week, Warzone Season 4 content. We'll have a lot to talk about and break down, so make sure you stick it here for all of that. I'd love to have you in the community if you're at all interested. But that said, let's jump into the discussion here. So firstly, one of the big questions that I've seen that may have been missed is the question of, will there be ground war within Modern Warfare 2? One thing that I thought was a massive hit for a number of different reasons in Modern Warfare 2019 was ground war, whether it be for just the sort of change up in the gameplay you may have been accustomed to in 6v6, whether or not you wanted to argue the skill-based matchmaking was lower in ground war, whether you just liked that large-scale combat, it didn't really matter. Ground war is something that was enjoyed by a plenty number of people, but it was also the first time in Call of Duty that we saw that large-scale combat. It did a great job, at least I thought, of capturing new and returning audiences alike. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a Battlefield game in 2019 launching alongside Modern Warfare 2018. But with no new offering, that also is something that I heard plenty of Battlefield players that were open to trying this out, and as such, did come over to Modern Warfare 2019. So after such a positive reception of ground war, to have then combined arms, a significantly smaller offering in Cold War, and then Blitz in Vanguard, only up to, I think, like what, in Vanguard 24v24 is the biggest we have seen yet, and I think that that's even dropped since then. What's going to happen with large-scale combat modes in Modern Warfare 2? Well, detailed from the reveal and our pre-briefing with Infinity Ward, ground war in name isn't returning seemingly, but the core concept of it is. Described in playstyles were core map play and what is dubbed battle map play. Now, core maps are, of course, your small, refined 6v6 maps built exclusively for 6v6 gameplay. We learned about 3 maps there: Museum, Grand Prix, Farm 18, but the more relevant to this discussion was the battle maps, something that was detailed as large exploratory maps that has a sort of sandbox nature to it. You can do a ton of exploring, you can have a ton of different locations to go around to. So the only thing that was really unknown about these battle maps that we never saw detailed to us were the player counts. So whether or not it's a one-to-one to what ground war was, but just reskinned and renamed, we don't quite know yet. I don't know if this was something that those that were out in Los Angeles, actually there at Infinity Ward Studio, they ended up getting to play the game, but I don't know if that's something they ended up getting any hands-on time. Myself and others also who couldn't make that trip ended up just getting the information side of things. No hands-on stuff with that, but even those that did play, their play experiences are embargoed, so that information isn't readily available. Though they did detail the battle maps as an evolution of what we saw with Verdansk and ground war. They said that they built it for day one large-scale combat, learning a lot from Verdansk. So maybe it is one-to-one, but there was a rumor a while back that combat pacing style was returning, evidenced by those core design pillars in core and battle maps, but that too never accounted for player count totals. So maybe it's like 24v24 like we see within Vanguard, but also there's still a chance that it could be 32v32 like traditional ground war in Modern Warfare 2019. We just don't know. The next thing that I saw a lot of questions on was some weapon tree variants and weapon vault discussion. Now, as we detailed in our gunsmith video here, I think like day 2 of our coverage, the weapon tree is a part of the new weapon customization systems, where gunsmith is going to have a lot more intricate details than we've seen in the past. Now, that's something you can check out that full video that we put up on the channel here if you want to see some recreations of what that looks like, but the weapon trees seem to be this way that I don't think will take away from anything that we see in regards to the base number of weaponry. What we already detailed was like 37 weapons that we ended up catching or something like that from the reveal trailer and the gameplay sequence from Summer Games Fest where they debuted that campaign mission. Outside of that, though, I think this is just going to be a simple way to unlock those previously sort of secret variants you could make in Modern Warfare 2019, where you could make the MP5 SD, you could make the AK-74U, and things like that. So instead of this being being something you kind of have to accidentally stumble upon or go out of your way to do, it seems like by unlocking your weapons and ranking them up, you'll just simply get those explicitly stated, hey, this is a build that you can end up selecting that is a variant of this base weapon. So I don't expect those base weapons to be affected or lower in count by comparison. I just think that those fun deviations you could have made in Modern Warfare 2019 are going to be explicitly stated and shown up front, as opposed to them being sort of secret weapons you could make. But again, until there's hands-on time with that, presumably in the beta, we just won't know for 100% certainty, but that's the way that it seems like to me. Now, weapon vaults being a little bit of a question mark as well. This is actually kind of being a correction going back to something we talked about when we talked about weapon vaults. We talked about the prospect of this being something that made weapon blueprints actually worthwhile by allowing customization across whatever weapon attachment you ended up equipping, meaning that if you ended up liking a blueprint but it wasn't the build that you wanted, you could still keep that cosmetic design across any of the attachments you ended up choosing to select. However, if that seemed maybe too good to be true, it kind of is. Joel Lemsley, studio art director at Infinity Ward, ended up clarifying a little bit that this is going to be a sort of high-level weapon blueprint that we won't see for every single weapon. We won't see this happen across all blueprints, but he stated this is a more extremely rare style of weapon blueprint category with more details to come soon. So it seems like this could be something we see on a great number of weapons, but not every single blueprint that we see out there. So I'd love to see that fundamentally changed, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that all breaks down. Now, outside of that, I want to talk a little bit about some confusion that I saw with field upgrades and lack thereof of others that have been listed. Now, of course, being that Modern Warfare 2 is a follow-up to Modern Warfare 2019, there's going to be a lot of crossover from design elements. Field upgrades being one of those as well that will carry on here into the upcoming gameplay experience. From our pre-briefing, we learned about the tactical camera, which is a field upgrade that if there's multiple on the map and on your team, you can actually interlink them, going back and forth between a couple of different cameras. There's a drill charge that will shoot a grenade through a wall after you place it. There's a DDoS, which is a sort of handheld EMP device, an inflatable decoy that will then be a way to potentially troll or throw off enemies. But the one thing that was noticeably absent from any of our discussion here about field upgrades was dead silence and or a ninja style perk. Now, officially speaking, there is no word on either of those things just yet. That could be coming exactly how we saw it within Modern Warfare 2019, or it could be something that isn't coming as a field upgrade at all, but instead we see something that decreases footsteps like a regular perk we've seen in the past. But rumored, there is its own perk. That's something that insiders have pointed towards that this will be the case. So we'll just have to see if those insider reports hold up over time. But right now, it seems like you might not have to worry too much about this being a field upgrade rather than a perk. Then finally, the last thing I want to talk about here is I've seen a lot of questions about seasonal length, and unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be an answer on this just yet, because there's quite literally zero information out there officially. I don't think that I've seen anything rumored or leaked from insiders, but the curious case of the Vault Edition introduced us to the potential of getting 50 tier skips as a purchase bonus. Previously, we haven't seen that many tier skips, so that kind of shifted the sentiment towards, okay, maybe post-launch content potentially lasts longer than what we see right now, possibly elongating the battle pass overall to cover longer periods of time. Theoretically, if we get a 3-month season instead of a 2-month season, maybe they bump it up to 150 tiers versus 100, or a 4-month season, 200 tiers. 50 would account for that in some regard, offering a more exponential boost to that for your, say, $20 buy-in comparable to what we have now of 20 tier skips versus 50 as advertised with the Vault Edition. And while I think that'd be a long-ass time for a season, it would somewhat make sense scaling-wise. Usually the Ultimate Edition comes with that entry to the Battle Pass of Season 1 plus 20 tier skips, so 20% of that Battle Pass. Now, if you scale 50 to 20% as a bonus, well, that's 250 tiers. I don't think that we'll see that much of an increase, but it's also possible we do see an increase. Maybe, just maybe, they're being generous with the tier skips to heavily incentivize pre-purchases and continued play through Season 1. It could be something that's scaled 1-to-1 where we do end up getting 20% of a bonus in 50 tiers, thus 250 tiers on the entire season, or maybe it's a combination of both. We don't quite know, but it's certainly a curious case here because 50 is quite a lot to add in terms of an incentive to purchase the Vault Edition. So that said, that's where we're at with this. Again, just wanted to answer some questions here in regards to some multiplayer offering changes that I've seen out there. So hopefully this cleared some questions up here for you. Again, if you have anything you'd like to add to this for maybe a follow-up, I don't quite know when a follow-up for this would be going out. We, of course, have a lot on our plate here over the next coming week and a half or so with Season 4's launch. But I mean, if we get a chance to, maybe we'll answer some questions here in regards to it. But that said, that's what we're going to call it for this one today. So let me know your thoughts down below. Are you guys liking the sound of what we've heard of Modern Warfare 2 so far? Anything that really concerns you? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, anything Warzone Season 4 upcoming. Whatever the case, we've got you covered here on the channel. So if you're at all interested, I'd love to have you in the community. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.